Well, hi there. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist. Born male, became female. You heard it here first, folks. Politics. We're all political right now because of Hillary versus Trump. And we hope that Hillary trumps Trump. But my guest is truly expert political consultant Jake Dilemani, very well known in political circles. I'm honored that he's doing my show. And we are going to talk about Hillary, Trump, and other things, including the Electoral College. How much does the popular vote really mean? And really, what is going to become of our nation? This is a truly pivotal moment in American politics. All presidential elections are important, but somehow this one seems perhaps a bit more important than many. Not only because Trump is, a cross between Caligula and Hitler, but because, first woman president, just as Barack Obama was the first person of color president. These are important elections, and we must make sure that Hillary wins, because anyone is better than Trump for our causes. Anyone who's progressive, you do not want a Trump presidency. We will be goose-stepping down Fifth Avenue going, seek Trump. It will be very unpleasant, believe me. Anyway, and he is not Swedish. Brr, we know he's German. Anyway, not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. I love my German fans. Mwah. Anyway, all you fun people out there in Berlin and all that. Anyway, my guest is, as I've said, political consultant Jake Dilemani. Hello, Jake.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
We let anyone on, don't worry about it. No.
Oh, well.
Okay, first of all, what exactly does a political consultant do?
Great question. Still trying to figure that out.
As little as possible. It's Chinatown.
Maybe a dictionary will help me out with that.
Yes.
A political consultant basically helps people run for office. That's the most simple explanation for it.
Do you tell them things like, wear the blue suit, not the gray suit, that kind of thing?
There are things like that a consultant does. Within the range of political consultants, there are, subcategories, and some consultants are pollsters, some are ad men, they put together TV spots, or...
Well, what kind are you?
I'm a general consultant, and I handle a lot of different aspects of a campaign. So some candidates will hire me to do their polling, some will hire me to do their TV spots or the radio spots.
When you do polling, does that mean you actually stand in the street and say, excuse me, can I ask you a question, please?
No, I would be the worst person to do that, no. Telephone polls, traditional telephone polls, or
you actually call yourself?
No, but I will write the polling instrument, and then you have a professional call center calls the list I give them, and it's just like a Gallup poll or a CBS New York Times poll. It's the same sort of statistical validity and professionalism that goes into it. But it runs the gamut what I do in terms of the consulting services and the campaigns I've worked on. I've worked on a presidential race. I've consulted.
Which one?
This was 2008 for a candidate named Bill Richardson, who was the former governor of New Mexico, ambassador to the UN, Secretary of Energy, a congressman. He was a very accomplished person. He's actually now a client of Mercury.
Is he running again?
No, but he is involved in international affairs still, and helps.
Wonderful.
Actually, there's a lot of work in terms of trying to release American hostages around the world. And
God knows, yes.
So a very, very talented, interesting man. But I also do a lot of races in New York, local races, municipal, state, congressional races. In New York, also Connecticut, Pennsylvania. Most of them, what I do is in the Northeast.
You won't believe this, but a prominent politician a month ago asked me, Dan Gorodnik, city council member, is being term limited out. And this person asked me to run for his seat. I thought that was grotesque. I thought, come on, what are you, crazy or something? Who would vote for me? Would there be any way to put me over? Only if we shoot the other candidates. And even then.
Without killing the other candidates, it's a function. All campaigns are different, but there are some truisms, and the truisms are vague, right? So it's it's a function of who are the other candidates, what's the field, right? Are you competitive in terms of fundraising? Have you raised enough money to get your message out? People aren't going to know you are unless you can advertise.
Exactly, sure.
And do you have a professional operation? Is your campaign staff and your consultants and whoever you have helping you, do they know what they're doing? If the answer to those questions are in your favor, then yeah, you could win.
Even a transgender woman.
It depends. Look, that district isn't necessarily known for its
transgender friendliness. Yes.
Or just that there's no transgender community of note there. Yeah. There'd be better districts in the
like
city.
Greenwich Village or somewhere.
Like Corey Johnson City Council seat.
Yes, who by the way is a great city council member. I'm very fond of him.
And that would
he
be
does wonderful stuff for the LGBTQ community. Yes.
Of course. But that said, it also the electorate's electing local elected officials in Manhattan, with very, very, very few exceptions, are very liberal electorates, right? It's a Democratic primary that's going to determine who's the council member. The general election is basically a rubber stamp in most districts. Right. And even in that district, which is the silk stocking district, right? Yes. The richest zip codes in the country, and the highest percentage of Republicans is still, and of the council districts in Manhattan, is still a Democratic district.
Yes.
So maybe.
But most unlikely. I declined with thanks. I said basically what I just said. What are you, nuts?
Yeah.
Get off drugs, for God's sake. No, impossible.
Yeah, well, it takes a certain kind of person to want to run for office. No matter who you are, the act of running for office, you're putting yourself, under a microscope. It's grueling work. It's thankless work. People think campaigns are sexy and that being a candidate's sexy.
Not if I've been a volunteer on campaign. They're awful.
Yeah, if you are in a competitive
18-hour days. No.
Yeah, it's probably. I know it is sexy to be able to call yourself a candidate at the cocktail parties, but in terms of the actual work of a campaign, shaking hands, meeting voters, dialing for dollars, all that stuff. It's an unglamorous lifestyle.
Yeah, you're basically in the position of a beggar, begging these people to let you rule their lives. It's very strange.
Yeah, it kind of is, yeah.
Yeah. So what made you want to become a political consultant?
I get asked that question a lot. There's no seminal moment or one thing that happened that made me want to be a consultant. I've always been interested since childhood in civics, for lack of a better term, history buff.
What kind of history do you like?
American history, American colonial history the most.
Isn't that interesting?
And so, back when the History Channel used to have programs devoted to history, now it's all ice road truckers or something else or whatever.
That weird pawn shop show.
Pawn Stars.
Yeah, it's very strange. But anyway, yes.
They used to have shows dedicated to actual historical events. And I was always a big History Channel watcher, and I always...
Do you believe in reincarnation?
I don't think so.
Well, see now, we reincarnation folk would say you were there during the colonial period, and
really
might well be one of the signers, and why not? One of the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Well, then who would I be?
I don't know. Who would you be?
I don't know. I had to look into that.
Yes. Have a past life regression and find out.
Okay. I will get right on that.
Yes, and there will be a quiz.
Okay.
But and someday they'll write a hit musical about you,
Excellent. Can't wait.
But, well, that's the way it works. You keep doing the same field over and over and over again.
In different lives.
Yeah. If you like it, So, and here you are. And you've been quite successful.
Thank you.
And you're quite young.
I think so.
So
not as young as I'd like to be, but yeah.
Oh, please. What wouldn't I give to be your age? Come on.
I'd like
crazy.
to be,
You should tell them how old you are.
I'm 30 years old.
Yeah, please. Come on. And you're complaining. Come on.
I'm not complaining.
30
I'm just
is
saying
great.
Grass is always greener.
Yeah, well, sure. But anyway, God, I was 30 years old when you were born. That's very weird. But anyway, I like weird. I just think of these things. So now, How do you get started as a political consultant? I mean, you can't just knock on a politician's door and say, "Hi, I'd like to be a consultant." How do I do it? I mean, how do you get started?
Yeah, most consultants got their start working on campaigns. You go from campaign to campaign to campaign, which is what I did, starting at a junior level.
When do you get paid, though?
Well, you keep doing it. I mean, the first political campaigns I got involved with, I was a high school student and I was volunteering and I was going door to door having petitions signed to get candidates on the ballot. And then throughout college, I interned on a race, and the internship led to a job on another race, and
an actual paying job.
Yeah, like a job that didn't pay a lot, but it paid, and
Did you major in political science?
I did, and that really has zero bearing on. I mean, the only if you're studying political science, undergrad, graduate studies, whatever, really the only subfield of that major that's relevant to the actual practice of political consulting is statistical analysis, because you're talking about polling at that point, right? Outside of that, it's interesting theory, it's history, but it has very little to do with practical politics.
What do your parents think of your career choice?
I think it took them a long time I actually still don't think they know what I do fully, but it took them a very long time to get to the point where they could verbalize it a little bit. So I think they now kind of know what I do, and I think that they're both, I am a Democratic consultant. I work at a bipartisan firm. We're a national firm with all 18 offices around the country and a couple overseas.
And the firm's name is Mercury.
Mercury, right. And, so some of us are Democrats, some of us are Republicans. I'm a Democrat. Both my parents are Democrats, so I think they're happy with what I do. If they weren't, they also wouldn't tell me.
Oh, they would not?
No, they wouldn't tell me that. They're good parents.
Well, okay. If I don't have children, but if I had a child and I didn't like what he was doing, I'd say, I don't like what you're doing.
Well, I'm not slinging drugs or anything.
Well, let's hope not, you politicians.
I'm slinging candidates, not drugs.
Yes, slinging. Anyway, so what do you do when a candidate is as dishonest as the day is long, belongs in a penitentiary for 30 years, but you have to sell this bum to the public?
Well, the premise of that question is that I have to take the candidates that I work with.
You're like a partner in a law firm. You have to attract clients, don't you?
Yeah, of course. But, look, if someone is known to be a criminal, has a very bad history, I'm not going to touch that person with a 10-foot pole.
Because it would damage your own reputation.
Sure, and I just don't want to work with that person.
No, but what if that person is considered, Senator Snodgrass, saint of the USA, and you know that this guy should, be in jail,
Yeah, well, look, it's one, you have to divorce. Well, if I really believe someone has to be in jail, then I probably will extricate myself from the situation. Most people don't fall in that category. There are elected officials, politicians out there that have a good public image. And, behind the scenes, one-on-one, they're not the greatest people. But,
I know, and I've met every last one of them.
But even those scenarios, those types of elected officials are few and far in between. But look, it's a job. I get paid to help people win elections. I don't have to love everyone that I work with. I've had the pleasure and the luck of liking most, on a very personal level, liking most of the candidates I've ever worked with. And that's, I guess, that's luck. But it's a business, You don't have to have personal.
Are you planning
feelings.
to run yourself?
No.
Why not?
Just like you, I have no desire to run for office.
I want to interview them, you want to get them elected, but neither of us wants to be a politician,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So, now, regarding this race, how in God's name did Trump get this far? How is this possible? Of all people, it's crazy, it's insane.
Yeah. Good question.
I know you have to be careful because you have Republican colleagues at the firm.
I do, and but Trump is a unique Republican candidate, and it would be a stretch to say that he has won over the hearts of all of the Republican colleagues of mine, because he has not. I don't think anyone has a full grasp on what I'll call Trumpism at this point, right? None of the pundits do. Political scientists, at universities are trying to figure this out. No one, and people for a long, long time were wrong about him. They said, "Oh, there's no way he would be a serious candidate. There's no way he'd win the primaries." And I think, by now, people have learned their lesson, and they're not saying that Trump can't do this or won't do that. Now, I'm prepared to say that he's not going to win the general election.
I hope not.
Because the math doesn't work out in his favor. We can get to that if you'd like, but. I think Trump has gotten to where he's gotten. He's become the Republican nominee because we are at a very interesting time in American public life and civic life. And every presidential election, the candidates say this is the most important presidential election, of our country's history. Maybe it's true each time. I don't know. Maybe each election is more important than the previous one. I do think that's certainly the case now, given the what Trump has been saying and what he's been doing.
Well, that's what's so horrifying. He panders to the bigots and the ignorant among us, and they lap it up, and they've given him great power, and that's what's so scary. Who knew that everyone out there, so many out there, were so petty, small-minded, bigoted, and angry?
Yeah, well, I will be a little bit more diplomatic about it, and I'll say that Donald Trump, like Bernie Sanders, tapped into segments of the electorate that are fed up with what I'll say is the status quo, right?
You mean the white lower middle class, and they're fed up with elitist think tank nonsense that leaves them without their factory jobs, that kind of thing.
Basically, yeah, but I think it's more than just that. I mean, I think you have, this is a trend in the American electorate over the last 30, 40 years, right? Middle class jobs have eroded, manufacturing's gone overseas. Some of it's actually starting to come back now, but not enough to make up for the lost jobs.
And it's always a selling claim.
Right.
Made in the USA.
Right. Wages have been stagnant for 30 plus years. They haven't caught up with inflation. People making, a middle class job, the same middle class job now, you compare that to in 1972, and they made one in 1972. Meanwhile, the cost of everything has gone up. Higher education, healthcare.
Well, educational costs are unconscionable.
Sure. Healthcare, everything has gone up except incomes. So people are being squeezed more and more. The middle class really is shrinking.
Yeah.
And, people want to blame someone for this, and I think it makes sense that they're blaming the status quo institutions, right? And what is it? That's career politicians. It is the media. It is big business, the financial services sector.
But there they do have a point, because outsourcing all jobs, you can't do that and have a prosperous economy. You cannot outsource the sources of income and then expect to sell things to people when they have no money.
Right. Well, I forget who said this, but basically, you got to get to the point where Walmart can sell all the cheap crap made from overseas that they want. You get to a point where no one's going to be able to afford the cheap crap even.
I think the other day I was walking down 86th Street from Lexington to First, coming back from an event. It was 8 o'clock at night. I was assaulted by well-dressed, seemingly well-fed beggars, begging for $1, $5. This woman got in my face and said, "I need money to buy Pampers. This never happened. 50 years ago, you never saw this kind of thing."
Yeah, well, I wouldn't know about 50 years ago, but
alas and alack, I would, yes.
But look, I think that's part of what's happening here. Trump is tapping
These were middle-class beggars, people who had been middle class, were clearly educated, were comparatively well-dressed, and were begging for alms in the street.
Yeah. Yeah, I have not personally seen that, but I can totally imagine. People think, when you talk about poor people, people are assuming homeless people, right? And the colloquial term poor, you think homeless, you think living in a trailer.
And people who are like, they have a patrimony of poverty.
Right.
Like, you know,
but the truth of the matter is, I mean, that certainly exists, but you have tens of millions of people working, the working poor in this country, who, you know, they live in homes.
Or not, or they live in shelters.
Sure, but even the folks that live in homes have enough money to be able to afford rent or mortgage payment. They're hanging by a thread. Right, they don't have any money. They're certainly not saving anything. Once they pay for, you know, the cost of living, their house, their apartment, or whatever, and then they pay for the bare necessities, food, medicine. They have nothing left over. They're up to their eyeballs in debt, a lot of them. And so, you know, Trump has tapped into this. Bernie, on the same token, tapped into some of the same sentiment here. You could argue that, yeah, the folks, the segment of the electorate that responded to him. Are different in a lot of ways. Certainly, their worldviews and their outlook on people not like them, unlike a lot of the Trump voters out there. But I don't.
They all come together under the libertarian umbrella.
To a degree, you could say that, yeah. But I don't. You know, and yes, there are supporters of Trump out there who are racist, bigots.
KKK members,
sure.
KKK heads.
Now, I don't actually think that's the majority.
Hopefully that's not the majority in our country.
Right. But so I think that there are real economic problems here, and you have someone like Hillary Clinton who's been around for 30 plus years in the public eye. She's, you know, first lady, senator.
The argument against her, and oh my God, we only have 6 minutes left, is that, well, it'll be just more of the same. Will it? I mean, having been awakened by Bernie and even by Trump, isn't her campaign now more cognizant of the economic inequality and all that is besetting our nation?
Sure, I think she is. I mean, I think, look, she's smart enough and professional enough to have known these were issues all along. I think maybe her campaign didn't pay them enough attention at first. And, you know, the major accomplishment of Bernie's candidacy was to push Hillary to the left on certain things, most notably probably her plan for affordable college, right?
Yes.
That was Bernie's big thing.
In this country, if you're watching this in a different nation, in this country, people take out unconscionably high college loans because they have no choice, and they pay them off until they're 55 or something. It's incredible. Yeah. And if you're in a country where you get free college, you would not believe what's going on.
Yeah, no, I mean
I believe Sweden, Denmark, all these places give free college.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's gotten to a point now where, for a lot of people, financially, it makes actually no sense to go to college.
Because there are no jobs.
The jobs don't pay enough. I mean, there's a lot of college grads, even from you know prestigious institutions. They have jobs, but they're underemployed, or they're not in it. They're not in fields in which they've studied for.
Yeah, you need a degree to be a burger flipper in today's world.
Right. So, but so I think Hillary's now pivoted more that way, and she's come out with I guess she's gotten more on the inequality bandwagon. Not that she didn't know from a policy level before.
Think, if she wins?
Yeah, I think so. I unlike Trump, if Hillary's pushing an agenda, I do believe that that she means it, and that she wants to support that. Now, it depends what Congress looks like. The U.S. Senate will probably flip back to being Democratic.
One would hope.
And then Chuck Schumer will be majority leader.
Yes, my favorite politician.
And the House of Representatives is a little trickier. Where, the difference between Democrats and Republicans is much larger than the Senate in terms of percentage of seats. But you look at polling across the country. And how Trump is not losing in all the battleground states, and that doesn't necessarily correlate to where we're going to win House seats as Democrats. But it's possible, depending on what Trump does on Election Day, that we even take back the House. It's unlikely, but it's possible. And so it depends on the makeup of Congress as far as can Hillary accomplish, her agenda. Hopefully the answer is yes.
And one way we can make that happen is for you to go out and vote. Don't think that, she's a shoo-in, and I'm late for work, so I can't vote today. I'm sorry. No, go out and vote. Make the time. Does the Electoral College negate the popular vote?
No, kind of. There have only been 3 elections in American history where the winner of the Electoral College did not also win the popular vote.
Which would be, for example, Al Gore versus W.
Exactly, right.
W won.
Right. That's the most recent example. The other two examples were in the 19th century, the late 1800s. So, historically, the overwhelming majority of the time, the Electoral College matches the will of the voters in the popular vote.
Given the fact that Trump is so despised by so many of the Republican hierarchy, he really doesn't stand much of a chance, does he?
No, you look at beyond the establishment, the Republican establishment, he doesn't, because you look at the math of where he needs to win, and you look at, there's several, it depends how you define battleground state, but he's losing all battleground states in all the polls right now.
Mm-hmm. If people want to contact you, for example, to hire your firm, how would they go about it?
You can go to mercury.com. MercuryLLC.com, and all the contact information is on the website.
Sounds great. So if you're a politician looking for a truly great political consulting firm, Mercury's your firm. Anyway, now you have to vote. You have to vote. If you can vote, vote. If you're an illegal immigrant or something, that's fine too. Don't vote. But I mean, you have to vote. If you can vote, vote. And for pity's sake, vote for Hillary. You might have a problem with her this way or that way, but that's too bad. Anyone is better than Trump. Absolutely anyone. Absolutely anyone. Anyway, on that cheerful note, and I love Hillary. I think she's a great person. Anyway, I like her hair. No, I love Hillary. I think she's great. And, I'm voting for Hillary. But who are you voting for?
I'm voting for Hillary.
Everyone's voting for Hillary. Anyway, my guest has been political consultant Jake Dilemani. Is this my camera? Well, one of them is. Anyway, I'll just stare in the middle. And I'm the Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. I love you a lot. Even if no one else loves you, I love you. And vote for Hillary, for pity's sake, for your own sake. Love you a lot. See you next time. Well, love you, love you, love you. And we have 24 seconds left. But don't say anything terrible because the microphones are still on even when we go off the air. So there you go. Not that you would say anything terrible. I would, but not you.
It depends.
Yeah, well, But anyway, love you a lot. See you next time. Vote for Hillary, please, for all our sakes. Thank you. Mwah. We're off. But the microphones are still on.
Hot mic.
Yes, I will undo you here. Yes. And that's it. Wasn't that easy?
It was fun.
Yeah.
I hope I was interesting.
Well, you can watch it right now. Come on.
I hope I don't look as bad as the one.
Oh, Bosh. Stop putting yourself down. That's 30. When you're 30 years old, you think that way. When you're my age, you realize everyone thinks that way, so you stop thinking that. Everyone feels goofy and ugly and weird, and
I don't want to see everyone.
And don't forget your phone.
Yes, of course.